Shavua Tov Mevarach, wishing everyone a blessed week. This is Rabbi Kovacs, and Mishnah Yomi is in chapter 9 of Ketubot at Mishnah Dalet. Now, yesterday's learning, we mentioned that some parties need to make a Shavua, an oath, before they can collect assets, whereas heirs do not. On the theme of making an oath, Mishnah Dalet explains when an oath may be required, the husband may require his wife even to make an oath. So Mishnah Dalet, Moshiv et Ishto Chenvanit. One sets his wife up as the chenvani, and the chenvani is the shopkeeper. So she's buying and selling merchandise on behalf of the husband. O shemina apotripa, or he appoints her as an administrator over his property. Usually an apotripa, apotropos, is a word for like a guardian ad litem, like a guardian of orphans to take care of orphans and spend money on their behalf. So these are fairly complex and important financial duties. So hareze mashbia kol zman sheyirtze. The husband can ask his wife to make an oath anytime he wants. If he notices his wife suddenly shows up with new diamond earrings and he notices there's something missing from the store and it's not accounted for in the books, you understand there might be some suspicion, and he would want his wife to clarify what happened, make sure she's performing her duties honestly. We're going to learn in Masechet Shavuot that biblical oaths are only in a situation where they make an oath to collect money. In this situation, these are rabbinical oaths. The rabbis enacted certain oaths where a person makes an oath that they do not owe money, that they did not misappropriate funds. Another example of this is a sharecropper. Since the sharecropper is the one doing all the work and they're only entitled to maybe a half or a third of the actual crops, so our sages had them make an oath, a rabbinical oath, that they didn't take extra if they were accused of such by the actual landowner. Now the Mishnah concludes, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer disagrees. He says it's not just vital and important and very expensive financial matters where they can make a shvua. Afilu al pilka val isota. A husband, he says, can have his wife make an oath even about her spindle that she uses to twist thread or about her dough. So he can have her make an oath that she's not misappropriating household items, like she's giving all the thread back to the household instead of keeping it to sell it on the sly for her own gain. In the Gemara, the other sages, they disagree vehemently. They say that's not an appropriate thing for a husband to be so makpid. The word makpid means like particular and suspicious, and it's just not appropriate for shalom bayis, for the relationship between a husband and a wife. Now, we don't know a lot about the relationship Rabbi Eliezer had with his wife, but there's one amazing Gemara. It's a Gemara in Bava Metzia 59b, Daf Nun Tes, which is a very famous daf. It's the Tanur Shel Achnai Gemara, where Rabbi Eliezer has a famous argument with the other sages about the purity of a certain oven. And they tell him, Lo b'shamayim hi. The answer is not in heaven, because he had brought all these proofs, miraculous proofs that the halacha is like him. So they went up against Rabbi Eliezer, even though Rabbi Eliezer had apparently heaven on his side. And the Gemara in Bava Metzia relates that the wife of Rabbi Eliezer, her name is Ima Shalom, she would not let him say Tachanun from then on, because Tachanun is a very powerful prayer, and she was worried it would affect her brother, who was a great sage who had disagreed with him. But the Gemara points out that one day, she was distracted. She thought it was Rosh Chodesh and there was no Tachanun, or she went to the door to give food to a pauper, to a beggar, and he went ahead and said Tachanun, and her brother passed away. So we see that perhaps even Rabbi Eliezer didn't make his wife account for every loaf of bread. She was giving bread away to the poor, without his prior consent. Anyway, let's go on to Mishnah. Hey, Kosav law, the husband made a declaration, Neder u'shvua ein li aloyach. I will not have you make any vow or oath. Ein yachol hashbia. He cannot make her then make an oath. Avol mashbiahu et yor sheha. But he can demand an oath of her heirs. Vet habayim bershuta, or those who are coming in her place. Now, these refer to cases where they were divorced, but she passed away before she received the ketuvah money, and her heirs are trying to collect the money, or she actually sold the rights to collect her ketuvah to a third party, and that third party is claiming. The Mishnah continues, if the husband said, Neder shvua ein li aloyich, not on you, val your sheikh, or your heirs, al habayim bershutich, or your assigns, as we say in modern legal language, heirs and assigns. He can't demand an oath of any of these parties. Aval, but your shav, his own heirs, the heirs of the husband, must be in ota. They can demand an oath. After all, they didn't make such a declaration waiving their rights. ve'et yorsheha, or her heirs trying to collect the ketuvah, et abayim b'shuta, or the assigns who are also trying to collect the ketuvah money. Finally, the Mishnah adds a case where he's more specific. He says, neder or ushvua ein li. He says, I will not make you make a vow or an oath about the ketuvah, lalo yorshai, or my heirs, v'lo abayim b'shuti, or if I assign the property to someone else, alayich, on you, v'al yorshayich, or your heirs, v'lo abayim b'shutich, or your assigns. Eino yachol. So the result here is they can't. They're not allowed lahashpia lohu, so he cannot cause her to make a shvua, v'lo yorshav, or his heirs may not, v'lo bayim birshuto, lo ota, so they cannot demand an oath, not from her, v'lo yorsheha, or from her heirs, v'lo bayim birshuto, or her assigns. So the Bartenura points out the husband's assigns are people who bought property from him. So if the wife is coming to collect the ketuvah, and he had already sold a field, then she would have to go collect from that field. It has a lien, a mortgage on it to pay her ketuvah, but she would have to make a shvua to the person owning that field currently. She hadn't yet collected. But the husband can waive that requirement. Yashar Kohachem, and have a great week.